Reflections on the Good News of Jesus Christ according to John for the fourth Sunday of Easter. Jesus said to his disciples, "I tell you truly, whoever does not enter a sheepfold through the gate, but climbs over elsewhere, is a thief and a robber. But whoever enters through the gate is the shepherd of the sheep. The gatekeeper opens it for him, and the sheep hear his voice, as the shepherd calls his own sheep by name and leads them out. When he has driven out all his own, he walks ahead of them, and the sheep follow him because they recognize his voice. But they will not follow a stranger. They will run away from him because they do not recognize the voice of strangers." Although Jesus used this figure of speech, the Pharisees did not realize what he was trying to tell them. So Jesus said again, "I tell you truly, I am the gate for the sheep. All who came before me are thieves and robbers, but the sheep did not listen to them. I am the gate. Whoever enters through me will be saved, and will come in and go out and find pasture. A thief comes only to steal and slaughter and destroy. I came so that they might have life and have it more abundantly." The good news of Jesus Christ. My sheep hear my voice. If you've ever spent any time around sheep, you may know that they are not exactly the brightest creatures God ever created, prone to running off and getting lost, then eating the wrong things and getting sick, a real pain. And their fragrance is not to be missed. So being called a sheep by Jesus or anyone is no great compliment. But did you hear his voice just now in this gospel? Of course, in order to do so, today or any day, you must make time for the quiet moments, because Jesus whispers, and the world is very loud. And finding quiet moments in the hectic and noisy pace of daily life may not be easy to do. It requires making choices about what you are willing to listen to and what you decide not to listen to. What voices do you hear in your daily coming and going? There are all kinds of voices who call out every day, hoping you will listen. Your spouse, your children or other family members, friends and fellow workers, the endless emails and text messages that demand your attention. And then there are the voices urging you to buy this gizmo or that gadget, back this cause, support that issue. So many voices, so much volume, that not being able to hear yourself think is a daily, if not hourly, phenomenon. Listen, please, to these words from a writer in the Boston Globe, reflecting on experiences, some of which you may have had, during these years of COVID-19. What would the world be like if the things that have become so important to us during this pandemic remained so? How would our lives look if our values and priorities were frozen right here? If we were always as kind to each other and as worried about the world as we are today? We would do just about everything differently. We would pay teachers, blessings be upon them, as much as hedge funders. Our hands would always be so clean, we could eat off them. We would have more respect and money for low-wage workers who deliver our basic needs. grocery store clerks and others who work to bring food to our tables, drivers who keep bringing packages to the luckiest among us, trash haulers and maintenance workers and janitors and others who put themselves at risk to protect us. We would really see the folks who work in restaurants, most of them for lousy money, and insist that they earn wages that match their dignity. We would leave bigger tips. We would spend less money on things that serve no purpose except to signal status, care less about impressing strangers, make more of what we have last. We would waste less, period. We would spend more time with our family and friends, and be more keenly aware of our massive good fortune to have them, especially the older ones. We would hug longer and linger in each other's presence. We would love our neighbor. Yep, even that one. We would work together to make those who are alone feel less so. We would be more grateful for all we have and more outraged about what others do not have. We will be happier on the other side of this if we remember. Did any of those ideas sound as though they could have been spoken by the Good Shepherd? The image of a good shepherd is, for us, the image of a person who cares. He is not like the one who has no concern. He takes the time to get to know others. She cares so much that she will even give her life for others. Given the innate stupidity of sheep, shepherding is hard work. The people of Jesus' time were quite familiar with sheep and shepherds, and the absolute necessity of a dedicated shepherd, not a hired hand, if the sheep were even to survive, much less thrive. People would recognize the images Jesus used. The one shepherd each night who would use his own body as a gate to the corral so that no sheep could leave, nor any thief enter without literally going through him. The way sheep became so accustomed to following the voice of their own shepherd that they would ignore any other voice. They may not be the brightest of God's creatures, but at least sheep know to whom they must listen. To whom do you listen? Given all the voices vying for your attention, to whom are you willing or even able to listen? My sheep hear my voice. We belong to a church populated by caring individuals who give their lives for others. Priests and nuns martyred in El Salvador, missionaries struggling in the remotest parts of the world, peace activists and climate activists challenging the consciences of nations, people caring lovingly for the sick and dying, people whose participation in their parish and community helps make them vibrant, welcoming Christian places. What would happen if all of us cared, really cared, about our brothers and sisters who are hungry, homeless, helpless, or mistreated? Those who are victimized, suffering, or unemployed? Those who find themselves impoverished, threatened, rejected? What would happen if all of us tried even a bit more to become good shepherds and truly care for one another? It would call for a lot of listening, as well as being listened to. Listening with the care of a good shepherd can be life-saving. Let me tell you about a group of people who are doing just that. These have been particularly difficult years for doctors, nurses, medical technicians, and personnel who have borne the weight of this pandemic in their heroic and tireless care of the patients and victims of COVID-19. So who cares for them when they've become exhausted, demoralized, terrified for their families, and overwhelmed by the death around them? How do they deal with their resentment and their guilt at feeling resentful, and their anger at the unmasked, unvaccinated carelessness of so many? At the outset of the pandemic, several psychiatrists created the Physician Support Line, a free peer-to-peer national phone line. Volunteer psychiatrists staff the phone line 7 days a week. Any physician from any state can call in without giving a name and talk for as long as they need. Other medical specialists are directed to similar resources. They can talk about helplessness, rage, depression, anxiety, loneliness, insomnia, and often the uncomfortable sense that they no longer recognize themselves. One of the volunteer psychiatrists, Dr. Elisa Ailey, wrote in the Boston Globe, "In a way, we do very little. We just listen. But the listening is luxurious, almost antiquated, because it comes without productivity requirements and without 15-minute curfews. We listen short, we listen long, sometimes with respectful inquiries into self-care, sometimes with attempts to help formulate the crisis that brought a caller to dial that day, sometimes with coping strategies, because even crisis physicians forget how to cope during a crisis. These psychiatrists are proving that the willingness to listen to another person, especially a suffering person, can be life-saving. The psychiatrists who give of their time and expertise to help struggling and overwhelmed physicians have taken on the vocation of good shepherding envisioned by Jesus, to seek out and bring back the lost and forgotten, to enable all to move beyond their fears and doubts to experience God's loving presence in their lives, to willingly pay the price for justice and mercy for all members of the one fold. In every Eucharist, we celebrate the real presence of Christ, and we do so because we could not be Christians without this. COVID-19 has emphasized how essential the real presence of each of us to the other truly is, because without that presence, we could not be human. Our gospel today calls us to reflect on the beauty, the importance, and the life-giving gift that being present to one another, being a good shepherd, can be for all of us. Thanks for listening.